Welcome to our presentation today on hoarding. I'm Kathy Bates with Practical Solutions, and today we're going to talk about how to help a hoarder, whether that be you personally or someone you love. And years ago, when I started my business in 2003, hoarding was not something we knew much about. Psychologists didn't understand it. There were very few organizers out there. And most people didn't know how to help a hoarder, but yet I found they were the ones that needed the help, the ones that weren't being reached. No one was understanding them and helping them. And people would tell them, well, you have too much stuff, you need to get rid of it. That's something they already knew, but they didn't know how to physically go in there and get rid of it. It was too overwhelming. And so I was able to start a company where we could help people. And so I'm going to start out by defining hoarding. And Wikipedia defines hoarding as the excessive acquisition of possessions and failure to use or discard them, even if the items are worthless, hazardous, or unsanitary. Compulsive hoarding impairs mobility and interferes with basic activities, including cooking, cleaning, showering, and sleeping. And as we know, about 6% of the population struggles with hoarding. So I hope today that whether you are the one struggling with hoarding or someone you really care about, you will learn something from today. And the thing I think we all, whether we're helping someone or need help ourselves, is to understand why. To understand that person. I think sometimes they're very misunderstood, usually highly intelligent people that are very creative. But again, there's just a little bit of a disconnect and they're misunderstood. And we need to see how we can understand those people better. So, hoarding is defined as an obsessive compulsive disorder. And if you're familiar with OCD, most of it plays out as someone who lives life perfectly and everything in their life is done perfectly. And they're nice and tidy and their house is very organized. And I always like to compare it to Monk in the TV show. He had obsessive compulsive disorder, and it was a little bit amusing, but a little bit sad. And we saw all the things he had to do a certain way. And that's what the person that hoards is struggling with. So I always like to say, imagine Monk with a wife and kids and messes in the house, and he loses control and he can no longer keep everything perfect. And that's where the hoarder is. So if they can't do things perfectly, they don't do them at all. And so they procrastinate and they get behind and they have a perfect plan to get this done, but they just don't have the time to do it the way it needs to be done. And so things get behind and accumulation begins. And so this is common. It's also a genetic disorder. So many times you'll see this running through the family. At least one child of a hoarder has the same tendencies, while other children may go the total opposite way and be minimalists that are very tidy because they don't want to be like that. Many have experienced a traumatic death, whether this be a death of a child, a friend, a family member that was very close to them, that they are struggling with that. And I think even this can be a perceived traumatic death. I had one client who had lived with his mother and cared for her mother, and at 92 she passed away. She lived a good life. She didn't suffer in the end, but he saw it as a traumatic death because he had invested so much time in her and his whole life revolved around her, and now she was gone. So he began to hoard. Also, a lot of my clients have been sexually abused and they're creating a wall around them so that no one will get in and hurt them again. And that is very common. And lastly, dementia. Sometimes you'll see hoarding tendencies not really play out until that person has a diminished mental capacity. And all of a sudden, they aren't able to make good decisions. So maybe when the mail comes in, they can't really distinguish between an IRS notice and junk mail. They don't feel like they can make good decisions, so they keep it all. They can't remember what they have at home, so when they go shopping, they buy more. And you'll see these tendencies in some of our older population that has dementia. So Many times you'll notice that people that hoard are depressed and they're lonely and they get really embarrassed and then they try to rationalize things. So this is kind of a downward spiral. The more they get depressed and lonely and anxious, the more they hoard. And the more they hoard, they get more depressed and lonely and anxious and push people away because they're embarrassed. And then they begin to try to rationalize because they feel like they need to explain their behavior. And so it can be a really hard cycle to break and start going in a positive direction. There are a lot of different things that people hoard, and it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but it does to them. Trash is something that I see quite often. It's actually the easiest to clean up because many times the person just hasn't done it. Maybe that thing needed to be scraped and recycled. It needed to be disposed of in a certain way. And so throwing away that trash is more difficult than you and I think. But again, it is easier than things that are more treasures. And there's definitely treasures or perceived treasures that people accumulate. And these may be collections that they love, things they feel like they can buy at a thrift store and sell online and make money. And so they have this plan, but again, the accumulation starts coming in and they can't keep up with it. They don't have the time to sell it. And so it becomes overwhelming. Sometimes, too, people are collecting these things as an investment. I hear that quite often, that people are saying, well, this is, I'm buying this stuff on, online because I'm going to leave this for my children. Well, honestly, their children don't want it, and they end up spending a lot of money on things that maybe can't even be resold. Information. A lot of people hoard. They are usually, like we said, intelligent. They want all this information. They want to process it. They want to use it. They don't want to miss anything. So they keep newspapers, magazines, anything that comes in with information, books, and they never get around to it. And again, get so overwhelmed by the amount that sometimes they don't even read a single newspaper, much less try to catch up on all the ones they've kept. New items, this is the shopaholic. You'll see that they get that satisfaction and they feel happy when they go out and they buy something, whether that be, clothes, jewelry, household items, decorations, kitchen items with the intention of cooking. All good intentions, but many times those bags stay just like they were from the store in their house for years and years, and they never actually use those items. Again, the conquest was really what gave them satisfaction. Food. A lot of people hoard food, whether it be expired or something they don't even need, but it was a good price, and they get all this accumulation of food because maybe they have a fear that they'll be without, and maybe they grew up without. Maybe they were a product of the Depression, and they struggled with having enough food, and now they never want to have that problem again. A lot of people are animal lovers, and they hoard animals. They are saving that animal for maybe what they feel like is they're going to be put down in the shelter, and they don't want that animal to go to the shelter, so they take it in, and they keep taking in animals, and all of a sudden it gets to be overwhelming. It's more than they can handle. Maybe the animals start breeding. They're unable to keep up with the litter box, and there's feces and urine, and these things just get out of control again. And another thing is human waste. And this is something that is very odd to most people, but it is something that you have to understand what that hoarder is thinking. To throwing that away would be like throwing that person away. So they may keep a child's diapers. They may keep their own waste. That's something that we see quite often. So how do you help this person? How do you get the help you need? Understanding where they're coming from is the most important thing. And then setting meaningful goals. So for someone that might mean, my goal is to, now that my kids have grandchildren for me, I want them to be able to come over and have a safe place to play. It might mean that they're getting older and they know they need a walker or a wheelchair, but they're unable to have that. Or maybe they need a caregiver and that caregiver is not able to come into the home because of the clutter. Usually it has to do with making room for people. And there's a reason these people have shut out people, and it's hard to get that back. So, as easy as it sounds, and as we talk them through it, they make that decision. They need to be reminded of that throughout the process, why we're doing this. And does this item that you are holding on to for dear life have more importance than that grandchild? Or are you taking care of yourself and getting the care you need? So, reminding them of those goals that they have set. I think it's always important to make sure they feel in control of the process and that you are trustworthy. That is something you see in these shows where that person finds out that people are taking stuff to the garbage without them or the donation pile, and they haven't made a decision on that stuff. It's much more therapeutic to go at a shorter, a much slower pace, but make sure that person is dealing with each item than to try to take it behind their backs and get rid of it. That's always going to break down the process. We have got to be trustworthy. These are this person's belongings, and they need to make the decision on that. We try to help them through that as quickly as we can. It's important to be physically and emotionally supportive. Emotionally talking through those things, physically moving it and taking it away at the end of the day if they've decided to get rid of it, putting like items together. That's always important. And guiding them through the decision making. So many times there's a gazillion decisions that need to be made. We don't want to say, do you want this piece of paper? Do you want that piece of paper? This one, this one, this one. It's easier to do a pre-sort and ask them if that's okay because you're touching their things. Are these papers that are older than a year and their bills, is that okay if I shred those? And they may say yes. And then you've gotten a category decision versus an individual decision. And that always helps. Keeping the person focused. So many times they're going to want to run. This is not a good experience. This is difficult for them. They're having to deal with their mess. So keeping them focused, keeping them on task, helping them over those obstacles, and just keeping them, reminding them of their goals and keeping them focused. And then helping that person make a permanent change. So many times we get them organized and it's very easy for them to slide back into the same habits of whether it be shopping, collecting, dumpster diving, whatever it is. We want them to make lasting changes. So that might mean for that person that loves shopping at thrift stores to go to the thrift store and come out without buying anything. Maybe take pictures of things that they would have loved to have bought, but they feel like they're still getting those, but they're not spending money and they're not bringing things into their home. For that person that people like to give things to, telling their friends, no, I don't want any of your discards. I've organized my house and I'm not bringing anything in. Shopping. I've had clients whose UPS men showed up at their door thinking something had happened to them because they stopped getting deliveries every day because they had to just put that aside and say, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to accumulate stuff that I don't need. And, they're saving money. They're keeping their house clear. And those are important things. So I hope today has helped you understand why people struggle with hoarding, whether that be you or someone else, and how to help them and create a meaningful change. I think so many times people are misunderstood, they're mistreated during the process, even though that person probably loves them and has good intentions, but throwing away his stuff behind their back just to get it done is not the correct way. So we are going to be on next week's Hoarders, which is the season finale. It's going to be on September 14th at 8 o'clock on A&E. Make sure you catch us, or if you want to watch it afterwards, it is Season 11, episode 8, and we'll also have it on our website, which is psorganizing.com. Make sure you go to our resource page. You can also see the one I was on a while back. Patty Eichhoff and I were on one. This one's going to be Heather and Mary Jo from our staff. So they'll be the ones actually doing the work, not the ones on camera. You might see them in the background. Look for the blue shirts and make sure you tell them what a great job they did. They are there to make sure that person gets the help they need, even if that means sometimes us staying late and helping that person. I'm going to put some list of books that I recommend out there so that if you are interested in reading up, these are some of my favorite books on hoarding to help you understand what's going on and how to make the changes. Of course, we would love to help you with anything you have, whether that be you're in our service area and want us to come to your house and help you, or if you're out of our service area and you need a recommendation of someone near you, maybe you need coaching through this, we can help you. So feel free to go to our website, again, psorganizing.com, and check out our resources, message me, call me. I love to get questions. Put your questions in the comments below too, and I will respond to those. But we look forward to seeing